I'm Representative Gerry Pollet from the 46th District, and today we're talking about how we can protect families from lead contamination in pots and pans, which has turned out to be a major issue. This is a public health investigative detective story. About 7 years ago, Washington State did testing for lead in children of Afghan and other refugees coming into Washington State for resettlement, and found that 44% of the Afghan children that were tested had very elevated levels of lead. And we're talking about levels of lead that will lower your IQ and have many other health effects. So King County Public Health and King County Hazardous Waste Program teamed up and did investigation and visited the homes of Afghan immigrants. And to their surprise, they found that the pots and pans and pressure cookers, many of which were bought here in the United States from stores or online, but marketed to refugee communities, had incredibly high levels of lead. The King County Public Health began testing online and found this is widespread and being marketed broadly at stores and online sites that you are well familiar with in terms of the names of those sites marketing them. Our legislation that the State House has passed unanimously, I'm very pleased to say, sets up a program for the state to test the lead in pots and pans, focusing first on these imported sites that we know have a problem and are marketing specific types of imported cookware that is often made with scrap metal abroad. And that scrap metal can come from things like melting down batteries. It's awful. And what King County Public Health found is that one meal in one of these pressure cookers that are being marketed now very broadly to try to say to people, oh, these are traditional Afghan, Indian, East Asian cookware, and marketing to the general public. One meal of just 1 cup, 250 milliliters, had enough lead to be 300 times the recommended level for a pregnant woman or a child in a day. It's incredibly high and dangerous. And even at that level that's recommended, children lose IQs. There is no safe level of lead in anything. Your body doesn't need lead for any purpose. It's horrible for you. And that's one reason why I led the state's effort to remove lead from our state school water a few years ago. And now we're needing to get the lead out of the pots and pans being sold to families. The bill puts in a standard of 5 parts per million of lead in the pots and pans. For a comparison, that was 5 parts per million, and in our water supply for school children, we have a standard of 5 parts per billion in the water. So we're basically saying that the pot can have 1,000 times more lead based on how much would leach out. But we're trying to set it on a very protective scientific standard of what would leach out of a pot, especially if you're boiling water in it or using it as a pressure cooker and putting your food in it for 24 hours. If you bought online or at a store an imported pot or one of these traditional pressure cookers that goes on top of the stove and heats up from the bottom and has a screw-on lid, and it was made in East Asia or India, you should go online and you will be able to find from King County Public Health examples and see if you have one of the brands that you should just not use at this point in time. With such a strong vote in the House, unanimous support, I'm hoping that the Senate will prioritize passage of this legislation and will see it enacted and signed by the governor quickly, and that public health departments around the state will begin to start testing lead content of pots and pans and these pressure cookers that are on store shelves or being marketed. The State Department of Ecology will do the testing, and let's get them off the shelves and not sold in Washington State.